problem is by the time we see it manifest, I mean, it's already death-like. I mean, it can already start killing the individual. So, this is about the spread of cancer. Now I will come to the treatment of cancer in Ayurveda. I mean, what the texts have to say. And we find, if you summarize the entire treatment strategies mentioned in Ayurveda, they can be grouped under 4 headings. We have what we can call as conservative management, surgical management, and then 2, very drastic interventions. One is Kshara karma and the other is Agni karma. So I'll just explain this again. I mean, conservative management is what we normally know as, internal and external medications, diet, and all these kind of interventions. Been doing panchakarma, taking herbs, all these would come under conservative management. So there are very few diseases where Ayurveda offers the entire spectrum of its treatments to be used. Cancer is one such disease. I mean, you need the entire range of conservative methods of management, plus surgery, plus Kshara karma, and also Agni karma. Now, surgery, of course, it was basically when they found, especially the tumor-forming cancers, if they grow to a certain size, there was no other option than to remove them surgically. And then try to prevent a recurrence, for which they would support it with, conservative management. It's sometimes very similar to what is also done in modern medicine, if you look at the texts. And Kshara karma is actually usage of certain alkaline substances. It's called sometimes alkaline cautery, which may be applied directly on the tumor or consumed internally, which is said to go and burn away that growth. And it will just cauterize or scarify that growth. And this, we are very tempted to compare this with the modern, at least in principle, it's very similar to the modern concept of chemotherapy. Where you use very strong chemicals inside which will go and completely, destroy that particular tissue. And the 4th level of management is Agni karma, which is directly burning, the cancer tumor, burning it itself. So in those days they used very crude methods, that they would heat certain metals and then place it directly on the tumor so that it just burns away. But this again is very similar to the modern radiation. But of course, I mean, what we need to look at is, I don't know whether modern radiation is in any way more superior than the traditional method of, because both are equally kind of painful and, difficult. So, which only shows, I mean, what I wanted to point out was that these are the 4 principles in the management of cancer that has been discussed in the classical Ayurvedic text. So when we look at what Ayurveda can offer today, we need to also keep this in mind. I mean, there are a lot of people making claims, that we have, but it's important to remember that our Ayurvedic texts have also clearly pointed out the limitations and the possibilities in managing cancer. Now, I believe also from our experience that one of the strongest areas where Ayurveda can contribute is in prevention of cancer, and also in management of cancer in very early stages, where we have methods of detoxification, methods of immunomodulation, and there are many herbs. In fact, we just recently did a survey of all research done in the field of Ayurveda and herbal medicine to find out which disease was actually the most researched. And surprisingly, it was cancer. The maximum number of research papers published related to Ayurveda and other herbal things which also have a bearing. Like if you ask which is the disease which has been most researched Ayurvedically, then the answer is cancer. There is no other disease for which, more number of herbs have actually been found in laboratory studies to be effective against tumors. But the paradox is that none of them have actually found clinical application. After cancer comes diabetes. So, There are a lot of herbs that have been found to have, growth inhibiting ability. And then there is diet regulation, exercise, and also psychotherapy. Now, I would like to, at this point, give some perspectives on how at a deeper psychosomatic level Ayurveda understands cancer, because that therein lies the secret for, prevention and management of cancer from a Ayurvedic point of view. I mean, I'd like to make this as an open statement. It's based on my experience. This may be challenged by some of the other Ayurvedic physicians, but I believe that over the centuries, the Ayurveda was very far ahead of its times in understanding cancer. But the basic principles of cancer management has not changed much. Only the external methodologies, like instead of charakarma, we now have more powerful, chemotherapeutic agents, which is perhaps even more harmful than the charas that were used in the tradition of Ayurveda. And instead of Agni karma, we have radiation, which can also still be, very painful and difficult for the patient. And what Ayurveda says is that cancer is a disease that should be prevented. There are studies which showed, I think in India, the number of cancer patients are still very high. But if you look at the incidence of cancer, it's significantly less compared to countries like the United States. And in fact, there was a scientist from, I think, in the Anderson Cancer Center who proposed this idea. His name is Dr. Bharat Agarwal, who thought that it was the use of certain spices like turmeric in the Indian food preparations that actually helped to, the prevention of cancer in the Indian community. Now the situation is changing because India is also getting more and more westernized. Yes. And in India, of course, the maximum type of cancers were mostly related to pan, chewing, tobacco, but the other types of cancers were significantly, 1/10 of what was found in the Western world. So this was intriguing. Now this is also a proof to show that Ayurveda believed that cancer shouldn't be a problem at all. I mean, it's already too late when you have a person with a very serious cancer. It shows severe negligence of your own health, severe, oversight in health management that you get these cancers. So I believe that our focus, the greatest, I'm not saying that Ayurveda cannot do much in cure, but I will come to our clinical experience also. There's so much of a limitation in a clinical setting that an Ayurvedic physician has to face when managing cancer, legal issues, difficulties, that the contribution that we have been able to make in curative medicine in cancer is comparatively less. But now I'd like to share a few ideas about the psychosomatic nature of cancer. Because from an Ayurvedic point of view, cancer means a total loss of integrity of even that personality. It's actually a splitting of your identity that before it happens at the cellular level, it begins at your mind. And which is why, so all these methodologies have also been tried in cancer, even in the Western. I think it was Carl Simonton who first kind of proposed psycho approaches to cancer, where integrating the personality of the individual helped cancer patients to gather themselves. It's actually much more deep rooted. It's not just physical, but very, very deeply psychological. That when we know today of carcinogens that we in Ayurveda call as dushi visha. Some way we can compare. All dushi visha is even a much larger concept. Dushi visha means certain type of toxins which get into your body, because if it's an acute toxin, we are immediately able to recognize and eliminate. But dushi vishas are toxins which work slowly over a long period of time, and they remain inside your body and eventually cause disease. So Ayurveda was aware of these dushi vishas which can damage your dosha dhatu stability and later cause diseases like cancer. Because one of the many reasons Ayurveda has talked about which can cause cancer, one is we say that when you get a simple disease like fever, and if you complicated it with your treatment, and you allow the doshas to go deeper, it's called as leena dosha avastha. So any health, practice which you do, which causes the doshas to actually go deeper into the dhatus, this can be a predisposing factor for cancer. So one of the primary advices that Ayurveda gives is also periodic cleansing of your system. And here you have to cleanse from the dhatus, not just, purging your intestines or so. This is at a physical level. Ayurveda believed that we keep carrying what we call as dushi visha in a system in a long term, and which is what over a period of time makes us more susceptible to cancer. If you look at the modern lifestyle, we can find that our lifestyle in terms of diet, in terms of our other habits, is very conducive. We are pushing in a lot of dushi vishas. And we convert some of our disease encounters also in such a way that we deactivate those materials for the time being, but they still, go deeper into our tissues. But what really triggers cancer, according to Ayurveda, is, a loss of identity. It is one part of your body at one point of time, losing that integrity with the whole. This, we say, is the ultimate psychological basis of cancer. And the difficulty here is, I don't know, many of you must be knowing the Ayurvedic concept of dosha, dhatu, ama. When you work on ama, you either take it into you or you throw it out of your system. Now this is also a psychological problem, ideally speaking, because there is a deep psychological crisis in the body when it confronts ama. So every physical disease has, it's a threat to the individuality of that person, right? But in cancer, the ama and the dhatu become inseparable. Now this is the problem with cancer. You have allowed the ama to penetrate into your dhatu to such a level that the identity of the ama and the dhatu becomes one. You must have learned in Ayurvedic treatment, we do pachana. When you do pachana, we separate. We have a stage where we say that the ama can be in the dhatu. And in that stage, don't forcefully try to remove it. Because when you try to forcefully remove ama, like an unripe fruit, those of you who have studied Panchakarma under Dr. Gupta, I'm sure you know of this concept that you shouldn't remove it from the dhatu. So what we do is we do a dhatu paka, and then the ama will separate out, and then you can remove it. But here in cancer, the biggest challenge for Ayurveda is you have to destroy the dhatu itself. And you can see all our treatments, Agni Karma, Chara Karma, surgery, is destroying the dhatu, because now there is no way you can do a pachana and separate the dhatu from the ama. So this is actually a self-inflicted disease where what should have been eliminated in a very simple way, we have allowed it to accumulate and get into our deeper dhatus, and it creates a total psychological, we may not realize this, but every simple disease causes a psychological threat, which is why we mentally also feel very uneasy. It threatens our individuality, and there is this split, but your body is quite stable. Your ego ultimately overpowers it, and you are able to go forward. But when it comes to cancer, deep inside, a cancer patient is psychologically, gone. That totality of that personality has already been disturbed. So if you look at these principles, detoxification, immunomodulation, growth inhibitor, all these are designed actually to prevent the formation of cancer in your system. And there are so many studies in societies, which have lived healthy lives, that the incidence of cancer is actually very, very minimal. I think we have reached a stage where we have started blaming our genes for cancer, but genes then can be blamed for everything. And today we know that epigenetics is considered to be more important. What happens around the genes in response to, what we do through our environment, through our own bodies are actually, more important. So this is an Ayurvedic, and in this first part of my talk, I wanted to give an overview that Ayurveda did understand what was cancer. And this important point, that cancer, more than looking for a cure for cancer, which is also necessary. There is actually more of our attention needs to go on prevention of cancer, because actually cancer gives us a lot of time, that we can, if we work on it, that we can actually prevent it from manifesting. So we have special detoxification methods which actually help us to remove the leena doshas, pachana dravyas, and I'm not going into those details, but I just wanted to point out how each of these interventions can actually work on cancer. I mean, we shouldn't be looking for a herb that might cure cancer. I mean, we need to have a strategy in Ayurveda which will be multidimensional, which will involve multiple, interventions, and which will be very specific to different individuals also. And so we have, even the Dushi Visha can be of different types. Cancer is also of different types. I'll come to those classifications. It can affect different dhatus. It can affect, different organs. So if we want to do a very specific cancer prevention program, I mean, we need to go into very specific details. It's not the same detoxification program that will work in, all types of cancers. And then immunomodulation. I mean, I've used these terms just for convenience, but Ayurvedically speaking, this is that which strengthens your dhatus and your ojas. This helps the dhatus to preserve their identity. I mean, it will not allow the ama. I mean, when your dhatu is very healthy, it rejects the ama back into the srotas. And the srotas brings it back into the kosta. And you will have a certain disease response which the body is trying to eliminate it out. Actually, sometimes many of us feel we are not getting sick, even though we are doing, bad things. I think this is a very dangerous sign. Sickness, small episodes of sickness are actually a sign of immunity. Whenever I know when I was young, I was traveling with some old Vaidyas, and I found how sensitive they are. There was one Vaidya who, whenever he got